Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Well, I don't think the Democrats should allow even meetings to occur with Trump's nominee to fill this vacancy by Justice Kennedy. I think they have to fight eye for an eye for what happened in 2016, where the Republicans led by Mitch McConnell refused to even consider or even meet with Merrick Garland. I think if the Democratic leadership under Schumer allows this to go forward, they're going to have a huge problem with the Democratic base. We saw Joe Crowley get beaten up in New York, up in Queens yesterday. You can tell that this leadership will be tottering on edge if they allow this to proceed. There's no way politically the Democratic base will stand for any kind of hearings or vote on a Trump nominee for the Supreme Court before the election. We've got an election in 4.5 months. There's no reason to consider a replacement on the Supreme Court in that time. No reason given the history of what happened. Let's watch McConnell now. I'm telling you, they have no right to bring this up after what they did in 2016.
I guess the practical question is, if that's the approach Democrats want to take, how do they do it? Because they tried to filibuster the they tried to filibuster the Gorsuch nomination. Republicans just did away with the filibuster.
Yep.
Republicans have 51 votes right now, 50 if McCain is sidelined. Still enough with Pence sitting there. If Republicans stay together, is there anything Democrats can do?
Well, there's a lot of dilatory tactics they can use on every other bill before the Congress between now and November. If they don't use everything they've got, if they don't play hardball, I think they're through. I know the Democratic base. They are very angry about this leadership. They feel it has not fought hard enough against Trump. And if they allow Trump to fill the Supreme Court with another conservative who will not share Justice Anthony Kennedy's views on social issues like marriage equality. I mean, Judge Kennedy deserves a lot of credit from the gay community, and I think all Americans, for marriage equality and for the liberty, the Lawrence case before that, his belief in the Liberty Clause and equality, and based upon the original Constitution. He is a great justice when it comes to these social gender issues. But if he gets replaced by a hardline social conservative, the Democratic leadership will have hell to pay.
That's for sure. So that's another angle. That's Chris Matthews obviously saying that the Democratic leadership, the Chuck Schumer, needs to say that because McConnell held open Merrick Garland's seat by saying that when Scalia died, Obama only had 1 year left as president, only one whole year. And that because he had 1 year, only one whole year, that we shouldn't vote on a Supreme Court nominee in the Senate because he was the lame duck president. Well, what Chris Matthews is arguing is we only have 4.5 months before an election. So how in the hell are you going to confirm somebody to the Supreme Court 4.5 months ahead of a midterm election? Okay? If Mitch McConnell was, applying his principles, evenly, then he would say, we have an election in 4.5 months. The majority of the Senate could change hands. All the committee chairmen could change hands. The Congress could, flip parties. The House could flip. The Senate could. We don't know. And so to respect the will of the people, to respect the will of the governed, we shouldn't push through a vote on anybody Donald Trump nominates so close to an election. But Mitch McConnell is a douche. Mitch McConnell has no principles. You can't say that because the president only has one whole year left that he shouldn't have the full powers of his office, which include having hearings and confirmation of somebody he nominates to fill a vacancy in the Supreme Court simply because 14 months from now, he won't be the president. Well, only 4.5 months from now, Mitch McConnell likely won't be the majority leader. See what I mean? So why? So I will say, I just saw Chuck Schumer on the floor making this case. I guess he also watches the cable TV, and I guess he understands that Chris Matthews is absolutely correct that we will vote. Well, first of all, it's going to be a biblical election. Okay, you talk about a blue wave. Moses never saw such activity in the ocean, and it split apart for him. Okay, so I'm telling you that if Mitch McConnell is a principled person, then he will say it's really too close to an election. And if Republicans are principled, then they will say it's too close to an election. Because that's what you said about Merrick Garland's confirmation. You also said, people of both parties said James Comey made an announcement too close to an election. And you know what? He did. So why are we having such a monumental appointment and confirmation happening 4.5 months ahead of an election? Makes no sense, does it? So that's one argument. Although the Democrats are without the power to force any of this, I will say that we, the governed, have every ability in our quiver to make phone calls. And of course, we've got to wait to see who he appoints. But I do have a list, and none of them are good. I'll go through it in a minute. But we can make phone calls to the moderates. We can make phone calls to the Susan Collins. We can. Who said he was crazy? We have her on tape saying he's crazy. We have Bob Corker saying it's become a cult of Trump. We have Jeff Flake saying this man's word is worth nothing. Okay, so we need to peel off 2 Republicans, because I forgot Mike Pence. He gets, if it's a tie, it's 50-49 sitting senators. But then if we peeled off 1 and it was 49-49, Pence would have the tie-breaking vote. So we need 2. We need 2 people to reject confirming somebody who will serve for decades on the arbiter of what is and what isn't constitutional, when we know that the next issue before the Supreme Court is going to be whether or not you can keep children in detention indefinitely. And we create a whole new class of prisoners, toddlers. I mean, this is sick. And here's the thing. Anthony Kennedy on the death penalty actually said, you couldn't put to death somebody who committed a death penalty crime when they were a minor. If somebody committed a murder when they were 12 years old, you couldn't sentence them to death. Now, you're talking about giving these kids a prison life beginning at the age of 18 months. I mean, this is crazy. And, you get the wrong guy on the Supreme Court, and that is what will happen. So there are things that can be done and must be done. But the first is to remember, Kentucky, that Mitch McConnell has no principles if he says this should go forward now, 4.5 months ahead of an election, when he held open the Supreme Court seat. This is a direct analogy because Barack Obama only had 14 more months. That's sick. Casey in West Palm. May I help you? How may I direct your call? All right, then. Rick in Los Angeles.
Hey, I'm here, Randy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I'll tell you. The news of Kennedy's retirement is very scary.
Yeah,
and,
it's frightening.
As far as being able to forestall a hearing on the next, Supreme Court nominee, Mitch is hellbound on getting as many of Trump's judges on the bench as possible. I know at some point in time, maybe a month or so ago, he had said he was planning on keeping the Senate in session.
Yes, this summer. Isn't that interesting?
During the summer to get them, to get all these judges confirmed. Now, I don't know that, I don't know if that's still in play, if he got pushback from his members and so forth, saying, no, there's no way in hell I'm going to stay in D.C. in the dog days of summer, But, the problem is the Democrats don't have the leverage, and, your guys like, Jeff Flake and Bob Corker, they do do shots across the bow, but usually they're with rubber-tipped arrows, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
when they go against Trump. I mean, they're just not,
They have no spine, right?
Exactly. So, they have no cojones, and they just don't seem to really, they're not really willing to go to the mat. And, I suspect that Kennedy was pressured by Mitch to step down.
It does feel that way. I mean, why would he retire ahead of a midterm election, when all he had to do was sit tight, until November? I mean, what's a few more months after, you turn 81? Makes no sense to anybody, and nobody's questioning why. Why now? Why ahead of an election?
Retirements do tend to occur at the end of a Supreme Court term, which always ends at the end of June. So
right, but he didn't have to say anything until the next Supreme Court session. What does it start in October?
Yeah, but I mean, he wants there to be a full complement of 9 judges as a judge. Of the Supreme
Why
Court.
They operated 4-4 for.
Oh, I know that.
I
know that. I'm just talking. This is what he's thinking, Randy. I'm not agreeing with what he's thinking.
I don't think this was his choice. I really don't. I think that something happened. He was pressured. I have no idea what they threatened him with or didn't threaten him with. It just seems so misplaced.
Maybe they had something on him, like maybe they had a photograph of him with a boy or with
goat.
a hooker or something, or a goat, who knows?
Yeah, I always say that, a live goat or a dead boy,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, he was a reliable Republican as far as business decisions. I mean, he wrote Citizens United.
I know.
Don't forget that. So the guy is not like. He's not like Jesus H. Christ, even though he wrote
he's not. You're right about that. I agree with you. I mean,
the guy I've heard that was the runner-up on the choice last time was Thomas Hardiman.
Right.
Who apparently is just a normal Republican, not like a Neil Gorsuch. I'll mispronounce his name intentionally because that's what he is. But, he is a politician in robes, by the way, even though he said...
Well, here's the thing about Hardiman, okay? Hardiman is a gun nut. Hardiman, believes that permitted, you shouldn't need a permit for any gun you want to have anywhere. There was a New Jersey law that prohibited handgun possession without a permit, and he wrote the dissent in that case. He also serves on the Third Circuit Court with Donald Trump's sister.
Right.
So he's probably up there as a pick.
That's where Alito came from as well.
Yes,
Third Circuit.
Yes, but Cruz is out there screaming he wants Senator Mike Lee to be on the Supreme Court.
Oh, jeez.
No, really. And Mike Lee's already said, well, I wouldn't say no. It's
of course he'd say yes.
Yeah,
Come on, I mean,
I know, lifetime appointment to the most prestigious court in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, this is scary. I mean, the court. You got to remember that in addition to all of these other decisions, they've basically limited people's right to sue. They've enforced arbitration clauses.
Yes.
In consumer class action cases.
Yes.
So if you're overcharged $20 by Verizon, you've got to sue individually, and then you have to go to arbitration. It's like, good luck. It's like you have a 2% chance of winning the arbitration, and it's going to be expensive. So who would do that in their right mind?
Yeah. Listen, this is what I'm telling everybody.
Yeah.
The idea that the individual can survive this is like 2%.
Yeah. But let's all send warm thoughts to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her health, because
I know.
We can't afford to have one of the liberals die in office or something like that.
This is frightening, I have to tell you. And this is why the Senate matters. And this is why voting matters. Presidents have awesome powers, as you now know. I used to sit there, during presidential, it doesn't matter who the president is. Really? Really?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I don't know who my senator is. I don't know. Listen, it really freaking
we can't
matters.
count on the courts. We got to get the elected officials that are going to represent us, as real citizens, not these corporate politicians.
As individuals, as people who work for a living and raise children in this country. We need representation. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.